Actress Natalie Wood was found dead today.
Her body was found floating here.
Officials said she apparently drowned accidentally.
But nothing further on the circumstances.
It was November 29, 1981, a cold night off California's Catalina Island. The waves were restless, the stars dimmed behind clouds, and somewhere between the wind and water, Hollywood lost one of its brightest lights. Natalie Wood, the girl who had grown up on screen, who had captivated audiences in West Side Story, shared the screen with James Dean, and conquered hearts with her grace, was gone, found floating face down near her yacht, the Splendor. But how does a woman so full of life vanish into the night, leaving behind more questions than answers? For over 4 decades, the story of Natalie Wood's death has haunted Hollywood like a ghost that refuses to rest. Was it a tragic accident, a drunken misstep, or was there something darker, hidden beneath the polished smiles and whispered denials? In this video, we revisit the mystery that has never truly slept, not to sensationalize it, but to understand the woman behind the myth, the love that defined her, and the night that changed everything. The Golden Girl of Hollywood. Long before her name became a headline, Natalie Wood was Hollywood's golden promise. Born Natalia Nikolaevna Zakharenko in 1938, she was the daughter of Russian immigrants chasing the American dream. By the time she was 5, she was already in front of a camera, a child star with eyes so wide and expressive that directors said she could speak without words. Her breakthrough came at just 16, opposite James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. It wasn't just a role, it was her arrival. She wasn't a girl anymore, she was a force. Hollywood adored her. The studios shaped her image. The press followed her every move, and audiences saw her as everything they wished they could be: beautiful, talented, and untouchable. But behind the glow of her success was a quiet fragility. Natalie often said she feared deep, dark water. It was a fear that seemed small at the time, an odd detail in a glamorous life. Yet it would one day feel hauntingly prophetic. She was raised to please, to smile, to perform. Her mother pushed her to seize every opportunity in Hollywood, shaping her into a star who rarely refused a director's call. That advice made her a star, but it also made her vulnerable. Every man she loved, every role she played, carried a piece of that same longing: to be seen, to be safe, to be enough. By the late 1950s, Natalie Wood had it all: the fame, the fortune, and the face on every magazine cover. Yet even then, there was something restless in her heart. Something that would draw her into a love story as fiery as it was doomed, with a man named Robert Wagner. The Marriage of Fire and Ice. When Natalie Wood first met Robert Wagner, she was 19, radiant, curious, and already weary of fame. He was 8 years older, a rising heartthrob with movie star charm and the kind of confidence that could light up a room. Hollywood called them the perfect couple. 2 dazzling faces, 2 glittering careers, 1 golden love story. But beneath the surface, perfection was a performance neither could keep forever. They married on December 28, 1957. The photographs showed smiles that seemed eternal. The princess and her prince, framed against the Hollywood sunset. But those close to them whispered that their love burned too hot. Natalie, emotional and sensitive, needed tenderness. Wagner, proud and traditional, needed control. Their differences collided behind closed doors, in jealous arguments and long silences. In public, they were America's dream couple. In private, they were 2 people drowning in expectations. Hollywood gossip only made things worse. Stories of flirtations, of pressure, of Wagner's temper when Natalie's star rose faster than his own. She loved him deeply, but love, for them, was both oxygen and fire. By 1962, their marriage cracked under the weight of fame. Natalie filed for divorce, breaking the illusion of the perfect Hollywood fairy tale. Friends said she grieved deeply, her heart torn between loyalty and survival. Wagner, devastated, retreated into silence. Years passed. Natalie remarried, became a mother, and tried to build a quieter life. But fate wasn't done with them. In 1972, Natalie and Wagner found each other again. Older, wiser, and still inexplicably drawn together. They remarried, believing that time could tame their fire. But as history would show, the past has a way of returning, especially when love burns too brightly to forget. Catalina Island, the final weekend. It was Thanksgiving weekend, 1981. Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner decided to spend it aboard their beloved yacht, the Splendor, anchored near Catalina Island, a tranquil escape from the chaos of Hollywood. With them was Christopher Walken, Natalie's co-star from Brainstorm, and Dennis Davern, the ship's captain. It should have been a quiet getaway, a retreat filled with laughter, good wine, and shared stories. But from the moment they set sail, tension simmered beneath the surface. Natalie and Walken had grown close while filming. It was a friendship built on artistic respect, but Wagner reportedly saw more, or at least feared there was. Friends would later say Wagner's jealousy was palpable that weekend, his glances sharp, his words edged with suspicion. For Natalie, it was exhausting. She'd spent her life trying to balance affection with approval, freedom with fear, and now, on that boat surrounded by dark, endless water, the thing she feared most, she felt trapped in every sense of the word. As evening fell, the four shared dinner and drinks. The laughter came easily at first, the clinking of glasses masking what lay underneath. But, as the night deepened, so did the tension. The sea grew rough, and so did the conversation. Witnesses on nearby boats later claimed they heard arguing, voices raised, disturbing noises, and then silence. Captain Davern would later recall Natalie retreating to her cabin, upset and wanting to leave the yacht. She had argued with Wagner about Walken, about her career, about the life she felt slipping out of her hands. The waves slapped against the hull, the wind howled, and somewhere in that uneasy night, everything began to unravel. In the early hours, Natalie Wood, the woman who once feared dark water, would disappear into it. The fight and the silence. The night grew colder, the sea more restless. On the Splendor, what began as laughter over dinner had curdled into accusation and anger. Captain Dennis Davern later recalled hearing the argument escalate between Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood. Voices raised, words sharp and slurred by drink. Christopher Walken, uncomfortable and unsure, tried to diffuse the tension, but by then, emotions were already spinning out of control. The topic was Natalie's closeness with Walken. Wagner's jealousy had always been part of their marriage, but that night, it turned raw. He pressed her about her feelings for Walken. Natalie, frustrated and hurt, refused to answer. It wasn't about Walken. It was about trust, about years of buried resentment. She wanted independence. He wanted control. Two people who loved each other too much to walk away, yet too proud to reach across the silence. Walken withdrew to his cabin. Davern later said he heard more shouting, then the sound of something breaking. Perhaps a bottle, perhaps a heart. Then came quiet, the kind of heavy, suffocating quiet that feels like the end of something. At some point, Natalie left the cabin. She was wearing a nightgown, a red jacket, and socks, no shoes. Davern said he heard the dinghy, the Valiant, being untied. Whether she meant to leave, to get away for air, or to escape the argument, no one knows. The water around the boat was black and endless. The waves slapped against the side, whispering warnings she'd spent her life trying to ignore. When Wagner finally realized she was gone, it was too late. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was terror. The screams in the dark. Around midnight, the peaceful rhythm of Catalina's waves was broken by something chilling. a woman's voice calling out into the darkness. "Help me! Someone help me!" Several witnesses on nearby boats would later report hearing those cries echoing across the cold November air. They said the sound came from the direction of the Splendor. Some thought it was just a quarrel. Others, unsure what to do, stayed silent. The kind of silence people spend a lifetime regretting. Back on the yacht, confusion reigned. Natalie Wood was missing. The small dinghy, the Valiant, was gone too. Robert Wagner, pale and trembling, claimed she must have taken it to shore. But those who knew her said she would never have done that. Not alone, not at night, and certainly not near water. She was terrified of it. Her fear was so deep that she once refused to swim in a movie scene without a diver standing by. Captain Dennis Davern urged Wagner to radio for help immediately, but Wagner hesitated. Why? No one really knows. Minutes became hours. It wasn't until around 1:30 a.m. that a distress call was finally made. By then, the dark water had swallowed every trace of her voice. The Coast Guard began searching. Spotlights cut through the fog, scanning the waves for a sign, a color, a sound, a miracle. None came. Only the low hum of engines and the endless pulse of the sea. Those who were there say the silence afterward was unbearable. The kind of silence that holds both guilt and grief. For somewhere out there, the woman who had once danced under Hollywood lights was now alone in the cold Pacific, her cries fading into legend. The body in the water. At sunrise on November 29, 1981, the ocean finally gave back what it had taken. A small patrol boat, searching the rocky coastline less than a mile from the Splendor's anchorage, spotted something red drifting in the waves. It was Natalie Wood, face down, her body gently moving with the tide, the red jacket she wore the night before clinging to her like a final curtain. She was only 43 years old. When rescuers pulled her from the water, the world seemed to stop. The glamorous actress, who had lit up West Side Story and Splendor in the Grass, was gone, and no one could explain why. The dinghy, the Valiant, was later found washed ashore, its engine off, the oars still in place. It looked as though it had never even been used. The Los Angeles County coroner ruled her death an accidental drowning. They said she must have tried to secure the dinghy, slipped and fallen into the water. But that explanation never sat right with those who knew her best. She was terrified of dark water, terrified of being alone near it. She would never have climbed out of that boat willingly. Bruises were found on her arms and legs, marks that told a different story. Captain Davern, tormented by guilt, would later claim that Wagner delayed the search, that tempers had flared, and that something terrible might have happened before she fell overboard. But there was no proof, only questions, and a silence that hung heavier than the truth itself. As news spread, Hollywood mourned. Fans left flowers outside her home, reporters filled the airwaves, and the world tried to make sense of the senseless. But beneath the mourning lay suspicion, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, this was no accident at all. The secrets resurface. Time moved on, but the truth refused to drown. For decades, the official story of Natalie Wood's death remained accidental, yet unease lingered in every corner of Hollywood. Too many questions were left unanswered, too many voices went unheard, and then, slowly, the silence began to break. In 2011, 30 years after that fateful night, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department reopened the case. New statements from Captain Dennis Davern reignited public curiosity and suspicion. Davern confessed on national television that he had not been fully truthful in his original report, saying he'd been pressured to protect Robert Wagner. He admitted he felt they hadn't done enough to save her, his voice shaking with regret. "It was wrong. I didn't tell the truth." He claimed that Wagner and Natalie had fought violently that night, and that after the shouting stopped, Wagner appeared distraught, but ordered Davern not to turn on the searchlights or radio for help. "We'll find her in the morning," Wagner had allegedly said. By then, it was already too late. The new investigation revealed details that cast fresh shadows on an old tragedy. Natalie's bruises were consistent with someone being held or pushed, and the coroner's office changed her cause of death to drowning and other undetermined factors. It wasn't an accusation, but it wasn't exoneration either. In 2018, Robert Wagner was officially named a person of interest. He never faced charges, and he never spoke publicly about the new investigation. To this day, he maintains his innocence, calling it a tragedy that has haunted me every day of my life. Yet for millions, the mystery remains unsolved, a puzzle pieced together by memory, regret, and whispers carried on the tide. The truth, like Natalie herself, lies somewhere between love and fear, between silence and the sea, the legend and the ghost. More than 4 decades have passed since that cold November night, yet Natalie Wood's spirit still lingers, not as a ghost to be feared, but as a reminder of how fragile beauty can be in a world built on illusion. Her name has become more than a mystery. It's a symbol of the human cost of fame, of love's shadows, of the questions that time refuses to bury. Her daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, has spent years trying to reclaim her mother's story from the fog of speculation. In interviews and her heartfelt documentary, Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind, Natasha paints a portrait not of a victim, but of a vibrant, passionate woman who lived fiercely and loved deeply. She has described her mother as her closest confidant, not a mystery to be solved. For Natasha, the goal was never vengeance. It was understanding, healing. Robert Wagner, now in his 90s, lives quietly, rarely granting interviews. Those who know him say the guilt never left, no matter what the truth may be. Christopher Walken, forever linked to that night, has kept his silence, perhaps out of respect, perhaps out of pain. And so the story of Natalie Wood endures, not as a solved case, but as a timeless echo. Every new generation rediscovers her smile in old films, her voice in forgotten interviews, her eyes shimmering on black and white posters that never age. The sea that took her still moves under the same stars, whispering secrets only it knows. Some believe the answers sank that night, somewhere between love and fear, between forgiveness and fate. Others believe her spirit simply rose above it, untouchable once more. Because in the end, Natalie Wood didn't just belong to Hollywood. She belonged to the hearts of those who still wonder and still remember. Natalie Wood's story is not just about fame, or Hollywood glitz, or even the tragic night that ended her life. It's about love, fear, and the fragile line between them. It's about a woman who gave everything on screen and behind the camera, yet whose life was so profoundly human, full of longing, passion, and unanswered questions. As we look back over the decades, the truth remains elusive. Was it a tragic accident? A fatal misstep fueled by fear and alcohol? Or was there something darker, hidden beneath the waves and whispered silences? Even those closest to Natalie, her daughter, her friends, and yes, Robert Wagner himself, carry pieces of the puzzle, some spoken, some forever locked away. What do you think really happened that night on Catalina Island? Was it an accident, a tragic consequence of tempers flaring, or something more sinister? The mystery has haunted Hollywood, but it also reminds us that the heart and story of a person are rarely simple. If you've been captivated by Natalie Wood's life and the mystery of her final night, make sure to subscribe for more cinematic, real-life Hollywood stories. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective is part of the conversation that keeps these legends alive. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that blends history, emotion, and the untold truths of Hollywood.